There's something about that phone that never sat right with me. When Sherri Papini husband Keith Papini found it, it wasn't smashed, it wasn't thrown, it wasn't half buried like someone had panicked and tried to hide it. It was just lying there in the grass, face up, the earbuds wrapped tight around it. And that's the detail that lingers. Wrapped, not tangled, wrapped. If you've ever pulled headphones out of your pocket in a rush, you know they don't wrap themselves neatly. They knot, they twist, they become a mess. But this wasn't a mess. It was contained. And caught in the loop of the cord was a strand of her blonde hair. Not ripped out, not clumped, just threaded through like it had been placed there. That was November 2nd, 2016. Redding, California, dry air, wide roads, the kind of suburb where sound travels. Sherri had gone out for a jog that afternoon. Black leggings, light top, no jacket, no purse, just her phone and headphones. It was ordinary. That's what makes it so effective. Nothing about it looked like a woman planning to disappear. Keith came home later and the house felt wrong in that quiet way you can't immediately explain. The kids hadn't been picked up. Her car was still there. He called her. No answer. He opened the tracking app and saw the dot blinking less than a mile away. Less than a mile is important. Less than a mile feels interrupted. It feels like something stopped her. Keith drove to Old Oregon Trail and stepped out into the still air and found the phone. Just there, waiting. And once that phone was found, the story began writing itself. Mother, jogger, gone. He stood in front of cameras that night looking pale and shaken, and he kept repeating the same sentence. She would never leave her kids. And people believed him because it felt true. Because mothers don't just walk away, not good mothers, not ones who love their children. That assumption became the spine of everything that followed. Search teams combed through dry hills with flashlights. Helicopters circled overhead. Volunteers showed up in reflective vests. And somewhere else, hundreds of miles away, she was alive. That's the part that changes the temperature of the whole story. She hadn't been dragged into a van. She hadn't been overpowered at gunpoint. She had contacted a former boyfriend weeks earlier. James Reyes, someone from her past, someone who knew her before the marriage. On November 2nd, James drove up from Southern California. She got into his car willingly, no struggle, no witnesses describing screams, just a woman getting into a vehicle. Inside his apartment in Costa Mesa, the blinds were closed but not sealed. Light edged around them in thin lines. It wasn't a dungeon. It wasn't cinematic. It was just an apartment. Couch, coffee table, television, and the television mattered because her face started appearing on it, missing. She watched. That's the part people struggle with. She watched. She saw helicopters scanning the hills near her home. She saw strangers holding up posters with her photograph. She saw her husband's voice crack on national television, and she did not step forward. That kind of silence isn't panic. Panic burns hot and fast. This was colder, slower, deliberate. She began restricting food, not dramatically at first, just smaller portions, enough that her cheeks would hollow slightly, enough that her clothes would hang differently. Bruises take time to bloom. You can't rush them. She struck herself where it would show but not disable. Thigh, rib, arm. The branding was discussed before it happened. That's what makes it harder to sit with. It wasn't impulsive. She needed something undeniable, something permanent, a mark that would silence doubt the moment anyone saw it. Metal was heated. It doesn't glow in movies the way people imagine. It just gets hot. The room goes very quiet when it touches skin. There's a smell, not dramatic, just real. When it was done, she looked at it. That would work. 22 days passed like that. The world searching, her name spreading, and when she finally reappeared, it was Thanksgiving morning. Of all days, reunion day, family day. She was found on the side of Interstate 5 near Woodland, thin, bruised, a chain around her waist, not tight enough to prevent movement, tight enough to photograph. She told officers 2 Hispanic women abducted her at gunpoint. Masks, accents, beatings, starvation. The details were specific in emotional places and vague in logistical ones. That's important. Specificity makes pain believable. Vagueness makes it hard to disprove. The country exhaled in horror and relief. She survived, visibly damaged, sympathy solidified. But investigators kept listening. Small words shifted when she retold the story. Tiny things, the order of events, the way restraints were described. Trauma can distort memory, yes, but distortion has patterns. This felt constructed. DNA from her clothing was tested quietly. No dramatic reveal, just a lab result appearing on a screen. Male DNA. That detail doesn't scream, it hums, because her captors were described as women. The DNA belonged to James Reyes. When the police knocked on his door, he didn't stage outrage. He didn't invent a counter-narrative. He said she called him and asked for help leaving. She stayed willingly, and the injuries were self-inflicted. He also mentioned the branding happened in his apartment because she wanted it to look real. And suddenly, everything feels different. The phone in the grass, the hair threaded into the cord, the chain on Thanksgiving, the 22 days, not survival, more like maintenance. She eventually pleaded guilty to mail fraud and lying to federal agents. She had claimed over $30,000 in victim compensation funds. Her husband filed for divorce. The public felt betrayed. But the thing that lingers isn't the legal outcome, it's the patience. 22 days of knowing people were searching, 22 days of hearing her husband beg, 22 days of letting the story grow larger than reality. She didn't just fake a kidnapping, she curated one. And the phone in the grass wasn't a clue, it was the opening scene. Like and subscribe.